I was standing in the lobby of a hotel when the elevator doors opened, and my wife walked out with another man. She was laughing, smiling in a way I hadn't seen her smile around me in months. Then she looked up, saw me standing there, and her face went completely pale. That should have been the worst part. It wasn't. The worst part was what happened next. She looked me straight in the eyes and lied. Then she lied again. And every new lie uncovered an even uglier truth. I never thought I'd be the guy posting one of these stories on Reddit. But if my experience keeps even one person from ignoring the red flags I ignored, then maybe it was worth telling. So, here's how everything fell apart. I'm 34. My wife is 32. We've been together for almost 11 years and married for 7. No kids. We talked about it a lot, but we kept putting it off because we wanted to be financially stable first. Looking back, that's one of the few decisions I'm grateful we made. Until about 4 months ago, I honestly believed we had a good marriage. We weren't perfect. We argued over stupid things like whose turn it was to grocery shop or whether I spent too much money on computer parts. Normal couple stuff. We'd watch movies on Friday nights, order takeout, complain about work, make vacation plans we never actually followed through on. Nothing screamed, "Your entire life is about to fall apart." If anything, I thought we had survived the hardest years already. She lost her father 3 years ago. I got laid off during the tech layoffs. We survived COVID together. We moved twice. We dealt with debt. I thought if we made it through all that, we'd make it through anything. Apparently not. The first thing that changed wasn't some dramatic movie moment. It was her phone. She had never cared where her phone was before. She'd leave it on the kitchen counter while she showered. I'd use it to Google recipes if mine was charging. Sometimes she'd ask me to answer texts while she was driving. Then one day, it was glued to her hand, face down, always. If she left the room, the phone went with her. Bathroom, phone. Taking the trash out, phone. Checking the mailbox, phone. Even sleeping. She started putting it under her pillow. I laughed the first time I noticed. "What are you hiding? Nuclear launch codes?" She laughed too. "My coworkers won't stop messaging." That made sense. She had recently switched departments and was managing a new team. I let it go. Then came the passwords. She changed every password on every device. Again, not necessarily weird. People care about privacy, but she'd never cared before. One night I picked up her iPad because mine was dead. "Hey, what's the passcode again?" She practically sprinted across the room. "I'll do it." It honestly startled me. "You okay?" "Yeah, there are work emails." I shrugged. Fair enough. A week later, I noticed she'd started smiling at her phone. Not just smiling, that smile, the one people get when they're flirting. She'd read something, bite her lip, try not to grin, then immediately lock the screen if I walked by. Again. I told myself I was imagining things, because what's the alternative? That the woman I'd spent over a decade loving had suddenly decided to start another relationship? No, that sounded insane. So I convinced myself I was insecure. Then work suddenly became her entire life. She was staying late 3 or 4 nights every week. Sometimes she'd text me around 6. "Still stuck here?" Then 8. "Don't wait up." Sometimes she'd come home after 10 smelling like expensive perfume she didn't own. I asked once, "Did someone at work spill perfume?" She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might fall out. "God, do you have to interrogate everything?" I just asked. It was probably someone in the elevator. Okay, fine. Maybe. Another week passed. Then another weird thing happened. She started going to the gym. Now, before anyone says that's normal, yes, it is. Except she'd hated the gym our entire relationship. She used to joke that cardio was a government conspiracy. Suddenly, she was buying matching workout outfits, protein shakes, expensive leggings, and spending 2 hours there every evening. I offered to join her. She immediately said no. You'd hate my classes. What classes? They're, women-focused. Oh. Then why were there men's running shoes in one of the pictures she posted from the gym? Probably nothing. That's what I kept saying. Probably nothing. One Friday, she came home carrying shopping bags, thousands of dollars worth of clothes, designer handbags, jewelry. I looked at the receipt by accident while helping unload everything. Over $3,000. I almost dropped it. What happened? I got a bonus. Seriously? That's awesome. She smiled. Yep. I hugged her. I was genuinely happy. That night we celebrated with dinner. She even insisted on paying. Looking back, that dinner makes me sick, because I later found out there never was a bonus. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Around this point, my friends started noticing. My best friend Ryan came over to watch football. She barely acknowledged him before disappearing upstairs. After she left, he looked at me. You guys okay? What do you mean? I don't know. He hesitated. She seems different. I laughed. Work stress. You sure? Yeah. He nodded. But I noticed he didn't look convinced. Neither was I. A few days later, something happened that still replays in my head. She fell asleep on the couch. Her phone buzzed. Over and over. Normally, I wouldn't even look. Seriously. I've always believed people deserve privacy. But she'd become so secretive that curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up. Face ID failed because her eyes were closed. I was literally about to set it back down. Then the notification preview appeared. Can't stop thinking about last night. My stomach dropped. Before I could read who it was from, her eyes opened. She snatched the phone so fast she almost dropped it. What the hell are you doing? I wasn't. Were you trying to go through my phone? I just saw. So now you're spying on me. I wasn't spying. You don't trust me. The conversation somehow became about me violating her privacy. Not about the message. Not about who sent it. By the end of the night, I was apologizing. Looking back, that was probably the moment she realized she could manipulate me, because every time I questioned something after that, she attacked. If I asked why she was late, you're controlling. If I asked who she was texting, you're insecure. If I mentioned she seemed distant, you're exhausting. After hearing those words enough times, you start believing them. Maybe I was insecure. Maybe work really was stressful. Maybe I was imagining everything. Then came our anniversary, 11 years together. She forgot. Not only forgot. She scheduled a work dinner. I had reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date. Flowers. A handwritten letter. Everything. I sat there alone for almost an hour. People kept walking in smiling with their partners. Every time the door opened, I thought it'd be her. She finally called. Oh my God. What happened? I completely forgot. Silence. I'm at work. I looked around the restaurant. It's our anniversary. I know. You forgot. I said I'm sorry. You could still come. I can't. Why? I'm in the middle of something. What? A meeting. At 8:30? Do I seriously have to justify my job to you? There it was again. Somehow, I was the problem. I drove home with the flowers sitting in the passenger seat. I've never felt lonelier. When she got home around midnight, she tossed a gift bag on the table. I stopped at a gas station. Inside was a box of cheap chocolates and a generic card that still had the price sticker on it. She hadn't even signed it. I don't care about expensive gifts. I care about effort. There wasn't any. I cried that night after she fell asleep. Quietly. In the bathroom. Because I didn't want her to hear me. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. I convinced myself things would improve. Instead, they got worse. She started volunteering for weekend conferences, company retreats, networking events. One Saturday, she left before sunrise, didn't come home until almost 1 in the morning. I asked how the conference went. It was boring. What was the keynote about? Blank stare. Leadership. What kind? I don't remember. You were there all day. I wasn't taking notes. She got angry again. You know what? She grabbed her purse. I'm going to Melissa's. You just got home. I need space. She slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. An hour later, Melissa called. She thought my wife was home. My wife had told Melissa she was spending the evening with me. Neither of us knew where she actually was. That was the first time I remember feeling genuine fear instead of suspicion. Not because I thought something bad had happened to her, because I finally admitted to myself that she had lied, not stretched the truth, not forgotten something, flat out lied. When she came home around 2 in the morning, I asked where she'd been. She didn't even hesitate. Melissa's. I talked to Melissa. A pause. Then, without missing a beat, she said, Oh, I mean Sarah's. You just said Melissa. I misspoke. I called Sarah too. Another pause. Then came the sigh. Oh my God, are you tracking every second of my life now? You lied. I didn't lie. You literally changed your story. I got the names mixed up. You've known both of them for years. She folded her arms. You know what your problem is? I just stared at her. You always assume the worst. For a second, I almost believed her. Then I remembered Melissa's confused voice on the phone. I remembered the anniversary, the hidden phone, the late nights, the message, the perfume, the fake bonus, the gym, the passwords. One lie is easy to explain. 20 start forming a pattern. I couldn't sleep after that conversation. Around 4 in the morning, I got up to get some water. As I walked past the living room, I noticed something glowing under the couch. Her old smartwatch, the one she stopped wearing months earlier. The charger had slipped loose, so the screen had lit up from a low battery warning. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice. But then another notification appeared on the tiny screen. A message preview. Just 6 words. Next Friday, same hotel as usual. I froze. The notification disappeared before I could read anything else. For a full minute, I just stood there, staring at a blank screen, trying to convince myself I'd misread it. Maybe it was a work conference. Maybe co-workers were booking rooms. Maybe there was some completely innocent explanation. I wanted there to be one. God, I wanted there to be one. Instead, I quietly picked up the watch, turned it over in my hands, and noticed something I hadn't seen before. She hadn't factory reset it. If it was still synced, then maybe, just maybe, it still held pieces of conversation she'd forgotten about. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't wondering if something was wrong anymore. I was wondering just how much of my marriage had been a lie. When I woke up that morning, I didn't feel angry. I felt tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with coffee. The kind where your brain has spent weeks trying to solve a puzzle it doesn't want the answer to. My wife was already gone. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Early meeting. Don't wait for dinner. A month earlier, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Now I stared at the handwriting like it belonged to a stranger. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and kept thinking about the notification on her old smartwatch. Next Friday. Same hotel as usual. Those 6 words wouldn't leave my head. I spent half an hour trying to talk myself out of caring. You're overreacting. It could mean anything. Don't become one of those paranoid husbands. Then another thought crossed my mind. If it really meant nothing, why had she become so secretive? Why lie about where she was? Why accuse me of being controlling every time I asked a simple question? Questions aren't the problem in a healthy marriage. Only the answers are. I dug through the junk drawer until I found the smartwatch charger. The watch powered on after a few minutes. My hands were actually shaking. Not because I was excited, because I knew that whatever I found would change something. Either I'd prove to myself that I was imagining everything, or I'd confirm my worst fear. The watch finally finished booting. A passcode, of course. I laughed to myself. For the first time in 11 years, I didn't know my wife's passcode. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. Her birthday. Wrong. Our dog's birthday from years ago. Wrong again. The watch locked me out for a minute. I leaned back in the chair and rubbed my face. Maybe this was a sign to stop. Maybe I was crossing a line. Then I remembered the anniversary dinner I'd spent alone, the lies about Melissa, the text that said, "Can't stop thinking about last night." No, if someone was crossing a line, it wasn't me. That evening she came home unusually early. She was cheerful, almost suspiciously cheerful. She kissed me on the cheek. "How was your day?" For a second, I almost forgot everything. This was the woman I'd fallen in love with. The smile, the laugh, the way she'd steal fries off my plate. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. The smile disappeared. She picked it up and walked into the bedroom before answering. Door closed. 5 minutes later, she came back out. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah." "Who was it?" "My mom." That answer lasted exactly 3 seconds. Her mom called while we were eating dinner. My wife looked confused. "Hi, Mom." I watched her face. She wasn't talking to someone she'd already spoken with. After hanging up, she noticed me looking. "What? I thought you already talked to her." "I forgot she called twice." Another lie. Tiny. Meaningless. Automatic. She lied even when she didn't need to. That's what scared me. Over the next few days, I stopped asking questions. Not because I'd stopped caring, because I'd started watching. Funny how much you notice once you stop arguing. She smiled at her phone every morning. She changed outfits before leaving for work, sometimes twice. She started wearing perfume I'd never seen before. She bought new earrings, got her hair done, started whitening her teeth. She even asked me one night, "Do I look younger?" I looked at her. "You look nice." She frowned. "That's it?" I almost laughed. For months I'd been trying to get her attention. Now suddenly my opinion mattered again. Ryan came over that weekend. We grilled burgers in the backyard while my wife said she was meeting co-workers for brunch. As soon as her car disappeared down the street, Ryan looked at me. "Okay." "What?" "I've known you since high school." "So?" "You've looked miserable for weeks." I sighed. I think she's cheating. Saying the words out loud felt unreal. Ryan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the grill. Finally, he asked quietly, "What makes you think that?" I told him everything. The phone, the lies, the fake bonus, the hotel message, the anniversary, Melissa, everything. When I finished, he didn't tell me I was crazy. He didn't tell me to calm down. He just nodded slowly. "I was hoping I was wrong. You noticed too? She's different." He hesitated. "I didn't want to say anything because I figured maybe you guys were working through something." I swallowed. "There is something else." "What?" "About 3 weeks ago." He looked uncomfortable. "I saw her downtown." "Okay." "She wasn't alone." I felt my stomach tighten. "Who was she with?" "I don't know." "What did he look like?" "Tall." "That's helpful." Ryan managed a weak smile. "Dark hair? Maybe late 30s. Were they? I honestly couldn't tell." "They were just walking?" "They were laughing." "Anything else?" "They hugged before going into a parking garage." I didn't know what to say. Ryan immediately added, "I almost called you." "Why didn't you?" "Because people hug friends." He was right. People do. But combined with everything else, it wasn't just a hug anymore. It was another piece of the puzzle. That Monday, something happened completely by accident. I was doing laundry while she was at work. Normally she handled her own clothes, but she'd left in a hurry. As I emptied one of her jacket pockets, a folded receipt fell onto the floor. At first I almost threw it away. Then I noticed the name. It wasn't a restaurant. It wasn't a store. It was a hotel. A hotel less than 20 minutes from our house. Date, last Friday. The same Friday she'd supposedly been at a leadership conference. Room charge. 2 guests. My vision blurred. I read it again. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe she booked a conference room. Maybe... No. It clearly said Deluxe King Suite. I just sat there on the laundry room floor holding that receipt. It felt like all the air had left the house. I wanted to confront her immediately. Instead, I took a picture. Then I put the receipt back exactly where I'd found it. I don't know why. Part of me still wanted to believe there was some explanation. Another part wanted to see if she'd notice it missing. She didn't. That night she came home carrying takeout. My treat. She was smiling, talking about work, complaining about traffic, as if everything was perfectly normal. I kept looking at her hands. The same hands that had held mine during our wedding vows. The same hands now opening soy sauce packets while pretending nothing had changed. "You're quiet," she said. "Just tired." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I love you." Those 3 words hit harder than any insult ever could, because I couldn't tell anymore whether she meant them or whether they were just another lie. The next morning I called in sick to work, not because I was sick, because I needed answers. Around 10:30 my wife texted, "Running between meetings. Love you." 5 minutes later I drove past her office. Her parking spot was empty. Maybe she'd parked somewhere else. Maybe. I waited. 20 minutes? 30? Nothing. Then I walked into the lobby. The receptionist smiled politely. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to surprise my wife for lunch." She typed my wife's name into the computer, then looked back up. "Oh. What?" "She isn't here today." My heart started pounding. "Are you sure?" "Yeah." "Did she leave already?" The receptionist frowned. "No. She called in this morning." I thanked her somehow, I honestly don't remember what I said, and walked back to my car in a daze. My wife had texted me that she was in meetings. According to her office, she'd never come in at all. I sat behind the wheel, staring at the steering wheel for what felt like forever. Then my phone buzzed. It was her. "Meeting just ended. Crazy morning, LOL." I looked at the message, then at the empty office building. The lie was undeniable now. Not a misunderstanding, not bad communication, a deliberate lie. I started the engine. For a moment I considered driving home. Instead, I remembered the receipt folded inside her jacket pocket. The hotel wasn't far away. Less than 20 minutes. Before I could talk myself out of it, I turned the wheel toward the highway. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe proof that I'd destroyed my own marriage with suspicion. Or maybe the truth. And deep down, for the first time, I was terrified that I was about to find it. By the time I pulled into the hotel parking lot, I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. I almost turned around. Twice. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to leave. Because as long as I didn't know for sure, there was still a tiny chance that all of this had some innocent explanation. The moment I walked through those doors, that chance was gone. The lobby was quiet. A couple in vacation clothes were checking out. Someone in a business suit was typing on a laptop near the fireplace. It looked painfully ordinary. I stood there for a full minute before convincing myself to walk to the front desk. The woman behind the counter smiled. "Good morning." "Morning." My voice sounded strange, like it belonged to someone else. I think my wife may have left something here last week." She asked for a last name. I gave it to her. She typed for a few seconds before stopping. "I'm sorry, sir." I can't give out information about another guest. Of course. I nodded. No problem. I walked away before she could see how embarrassed I was. What had I expected? That she'd hand me a copy of the reservation? I sat down in one of the lobby chairs trying to think. Then my phone buzzed. My wife. Lunch with the team. Probably won't answer for a while. I looked around the lobby. There wasn't much to do except wait. So I waited. 20 minutes passed. Nothing. Then, just as I was convincing myself to leave, the elevator doors opened. A man stepped out. Tall, dark hair, late 30s. Ryan's description flashed through my mind immediately. He wasn't alone. My wife walked out beside him. She was laughing. Not the polite laugh she used with coworkers. The real one. The one I hadn't heard at home in months. Then she reached over and straightened his tie. He smiled. She touched his arm. The world seemed to slow down. I couldn't hear the lobby music anymore. Couldn't hear people talking. It felt like someone had pressed mute on reality. They walked toward the exit together. She looked happy. Happier than I'd seen her in a very long time. Then she looked up. Our eyes met. Everything stopped. The smile vanished from her face instantly. She froze. The man looked between us. Emily? She whispered my name like she'd seen a ghost. I stood up. Neither of us moved. Finally, she walked toward me. What are you doing here? Not, can I explain? Not, I'm sorry. That. What are you doing here? I looked at the man. Who is he? She answered immediately. A coworker. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. She shot him a look that made him stay quiet. A coworker? I repeated. Yes. Coming out of a hotel? We had a client meeting. I glanced around the lobby. In a hotel room? It was a conference suite. I pointed toward the elevators. You came down from the guest floors. Her expression changed for half a second. Then she recovered. We got lost. Even now. Even standing there. She was lying. I could see it. The man finally stepped forward. I think I should... She interrupted him. Go. He hesitated. She said it again, sharper this time. Just go. Without another word, he walked out of the hotel. I watched him leave. Neither of us said anything until the front doors closed behind him. Then I asked quietly, Who is he? I told you. No. You don't believe me? I watched you walk out of a hotel together. It isn't what it looks like. I've seen those words in movies my entire life. I never imagined hearing them directed at me. What does it look like? She crossed her arms. It looks like you're stalking me. I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm stalking you? You followed me. You told me you were in meetings. I was. The receptionist at your office said you called in. Her face changed, just for a second. You went to my office? You lied. You checked up on me? You lied. You've completely invaded my privacy. I stared at her. There it was again. Every conversation somehow became my fault. I took a slow breath. One more time. Silence. Who is he? She looked away. My manager. You straighten your manager's tie now? He was nervous before meeting a client. Really? Yes. So what's his name? Another pause. David. It came too quickly, like she'd picked the first name she could think of. Last name? She frowned. Why does that matter? If he's your manager, you know his last name. I don't have to prove anything to you. That answer was all the proof I needed. I turned and walked toward the exit. Where are you going? She asked. Home. So you're just leaving? What else is there to say? She hurried after me. You're overreacting. I kept walking. It wasn't cheating. I stopped. I hadn't even used the word. She had. Slowly, I turned around. I never said cheating. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely rattled. I, I just meant you brought it up, because that's obviously what you're thinking. I didn't answer. She stepped closer. Nothing happened. Then why lie? I knew you'd react like this. I reacted because you lied. You've been suspicious for months. Because you've been lying for months. People in the lobby had started looking over. I didn't care. She lowered her voice. Can we not do this here? I agree. Good. We'll do it at home. Her shoulders relaxed. I think she believed she could still talk her way out of it. She had no idea how much had already fallen apart. The drive home was silent. She followed in her own car. When we pulled into the driveway, she rushed inside ahead of me. By the time I walked through the front door, she already had 2 mugs of coffee on the table. Like this was going to be a calm discussion. Sit down, she said. I stayed standing. No. She sighed dramatically. You're making this bigger than it is. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Then I opened the picture I'd taken of the hotel receipt. I set it on the table. Her eyes widened. For the first time all day, she didn't have an immediate answer. Where did you get that? It fell out of your jacket. She looked at the picture for several seconds. Finally, she said quietly, I was going to tell you. When? I don't know. When you got caught? No. Then when? Silence. I felt something inside me finally snap. Not anger. Hope. Hope that she'd decide to be honest. Hope that there was some misunderstanding. Hope that we'd laugh about this someday. It disappeared in that silence. I'll ask one last time. She looked at the floor. Did you sleep with him? She started crying. Real tears, heavy breathing, shaking shoulders. For just a second, my instincts kicked in. For 11 years, whenever she cried, I comforted her. I almost reached for her. Then I realized something. She still hadn't answered. Instead, she whispered, It only happened once. The room felt impossibly quiet. I nodded slowly. Thank you. She looked surprised. That's all? I finally got the truth. She wiped her eyes. It was a mistake. One time? Yes. I held up the receipt photo. Then why does the message on your old smartwatch say, same hotel as usual? The color drained from her face. She hadn't remembered the watch. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. And in that moment, I knew the confession I'd just heard wasn't the whole story. It was only the part she thought I already knew. She stared at me like she was trying to calculate how much I knew. Not what she had done, how much I knew. Looking back, that realization hurt almost as much as the affair itself. A person who feels genuine remorse usually wants to tell the truth. A person trying to avoid consequences wants to know how much evidence they're up against. She took a deep breath. I can explain. I nodded toward the kitchen chair. Go ahead. She sat down slowly, folded her hands together, and looked everywhere except at me. It started a few months ago. I didn't interrupt. We were working late on a project together. Another pause. We got too close. I still said nothing. One night we had too much to drink after dinner with clients. She sniffled. It just happened. I looked at her. So the hotel receipt? She nodded. That was the only time. The watch message? I don't remember that. You don't remember? No. You don't remember someone texting you? Same hotel as usual? She hesitated. I think he was joking. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insulting. You think? It could have been sarcasm. Really? Yes. So you've never been to that hotel before? I told you once. I walked over to the counter and leaned against it. You know what's interesting? She looked up. I haven't actually told you which hotel. Her face went blank. Then she realized. She had just confirmed she knew exactly which hotel I meant. She started. You walked right into that one. She buried her face in her hands. I can't think straight. No, I said quietly. I don't think you can. For the next hour, I listened to 4 different versions of the same story. Version 1, it happened once. Version 2, it happened twice. Version 3, they never planned it. Version 4, they'd been emotionally close for months before anything physical happened. Every new version contradicted the previous one. Every contradiction produced another explanation. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. You've been distant too. That last one finally made me snap. I've been distant? You've worked a lot. I worked overtime because you said we should save for a house. I felt lonely. So you started another relationship? I didn't mean for it to happen. No. I shook my head. You made thousands of choices. She looked offended. It wasn't planned. You exchanged phone numbers. Silence. You texted. Silence. You met outside work. Silence. You booked hotels. Silence. You lied to me. Silence. Those are choices. She didn't answer. About an hour into the conversation, her phone rang. She looked at the screen, then quickly turned it face down. Who is it? I asked. No one. No one is calling you? It's spam. Answer it. I don't need to. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. Same number. I held out my hand. Give me the phone. No. Why not? Because it's mine. It wasn't a problem when you wanted to read my messages last year after my coworker texted me about a project. That's different. How? You could have been cheating. The irony almost made me dizzy. You accused me because another woman texted me about work. She looked away. You've been sleeping with another man. I said I'm sorry. Those aren't the same thing. The phone rang a third time. Finally, she answered. She put it on speaker before I could ask. Hello? There was silence for a second, then a man's voice. Is everything okay? She immediately ended the call. Neither of us moved. I looked at her. She looked at the floor. Quietly, I asked, David? She nodded. So that's his real name. Another nod. He knows I'm here. She didn't answer. He called to check if you got home. Still nothing. I suddenly felt exhausted. Not angry, just empty. That night I slept in the guest room. Around midnight I heard footsteps outside the door. A soft knock. Can we talk? I didn't answer. Another knock. I'm sorry. Still nothing. I love you. I stared at the ceiling. Funny how words lose all meaning once trust disappears. Eventually, I heard her walk away. I don't think either of us slept much. The next morning, I woke up to raised voices downstairs. I recognized one immediately. My wife. The other belonged to someone I hadn't expected. Her younger sister. I walked into the kitchen. Both of them stopped talking. Her sister looked uncomfortable. I probably shouldn't be here. My wife wiped at her eyes dramatically. I needed someone. Her sister glanced at me. I heard something happened. I nodded. She told you? She said you accused her of cheating. I looked at my wife. You said accused? She quickly jumped in. I told her everything. No, I replied. You told her I accused you. Her sister frowned. What does that mean? I walked over to the counter, picked up the hotel receipt I'd printed from the photo, and handed it to her. Then I showed her the text I'd written down from the smartwatch. Then I explained what happened at the hotel. I didn't exaggerate, didn't insult anyone, just facts. Her sister read everything in silence, then slowly looked at my wife. You told me it was just a misunderstanding. It is. No, her sister said quietly. It isn't. For the first time since arriving, she sounded disappointed instead of supportive. You lied to me too. My wife burst into tears again. You always take his side. Her sister blinked. I just got here. You've never supported me. I'm literally looking at evidence. You think I'm a terrible person. I think you need to stop lying. The room went silent. Her sister turned to me. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. I honestly thought this was another argument. I nodded. I know. She looked back at my wife one last time. When you're ready to tell the truth, call me. Then she left. The front door closed. My wife rounded on me immediately. You embarrassed me. I stared at her. You invited her here. You turned her against me. I answered her questions. You made me look like a monster. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You did that yourself. She glared at me. Then, for the first time in our entire relationship, she said something I don't think I'll ever forget. If you had been a better husband, none of this would have happened. The sentence hung in the air. I actually waited. I expected her to realize what she'd just said, to apologize, to take it back. Instead, she doubled down. You stopped making me feel special. You stopped listening. You weren't romantic anymore. Every complaint was something she had never mentioned before. Every excuse sounded like it had been rehearsed. I listened quietly until she finished. Then I asked one question. So why didn't you ask for a divorce? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out, because there wasn't an answer that made what she'd done acceptable. After nearly a minute of silence, I walked upstairs. I opened the closet, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing a few days' worth of clothes. Behind me, I heard her voice crack. What are you doing? I'm leaving for a while. You can't just leave. I can. We need to fix this. I zipped the suitcase closed. You spent months breaking this. I picked it up. I need time to decide whether it's even fixable. As I walked toward the stairs, she called after me one last time. Where are you going? I stopped without turning around. I honestly don't know. And for the first time in 11 years, that was the truth. I ended up at Ryan's apartment. He opened the door, took one look at me standing there with a suitcase, and didn't ask a single question. He just stepped aside. Guest rooms made up. I don't think I've ever appreciated someone more. We ordered pizza. It sat on the coffee table for nearly an hour untouched. Finally, he broke the silence. So? I told him everything. The hotel, the confession, the lies, the excuses, the blame. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. I'm sorry, man. Me too. You know what you're going to do? I stared at the cold pizza. I thought I did. And now? I don't know. That was the truth. Despite everything, part of me still loved her. Love doesn't disappear the moment you discover someone betrayed you. If anything, that's what makes it hurt so much. You don't just lose your spouse. You lose the future you thought you were building together. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications, texts, missed calls, voicemails. Most of them were from my wife. The messages started out apologetic. Please come home. We can work through this. I'm so sorry. Then they slowly changed. You're ignoring me. This isn't fair. Marriage means fighting for each other. By lunchtime, they became angry. Running away won't solve anything. You're acting like you're perfect. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her, because I had nothing left to say. Around 3 that afternoon, an unknown number called. Normally, I would have ignored it. For some reason, I answered. Hello? There was a pause. Then a man's voice. I think we should talk. I already knew who it was. David? Yeah. I almost hung up. Instead, I asked, how did you get my number? Another pause. Emily gave it to me. Of course she had. I don't want to fight. I don't either. I just think you deserve the truth. That sentence got my attention. What truth? I don't think she's told you everything. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? I'd rather tell you in person. Every instinct told me to say no. Instead, an hour later, I found myself sitting across from the man who had helped destroy my marriage. He looked nervous. Not arrogant. Not smug. Just nervous. "I'm sorry," he said before I even sat down. I didn't respond. "I know saying that doesn't change anything." "No, it doesn't." He nodded. I figured. For a full minute, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, "How long?" He closed his eyes. "About 8 months." 8 months. She'd told me it had become physical only recently. 8 months meant it had started before our anniversary, before the fake work conferences, before most of the lies I'd uncovered. My chest felt tight. "Did you know she was married?" "Yes." "So you didn't care?" I cared. I looked at him. That's an interesting way of showing it. He looked genuinely ashamed. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not going to. I know." Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "I ended things." I frowned. "What?" "Last week." "Why?" "Because I found out she lied to me too." For the first time, I was genuinely confused. "Lied about what?" He rubbed his forehead. "She told me you two had been separated for almost a year." I stared at him. "What?" "She said the marriage was basically over." I couldn't help laughing. A bitter, exhausted laugh. "We were planning a vacation." His eyes widened. "What?" "She picked out hotels 2 months ago." He looked sick. "I swear to God." He shook his head. "I didn't know." "You expect me to believe that?" "I know how it sounds." He reached into his jacket pocket and slid his phone across the table. "Read the messages." I hesitated, then picked it up. There were months of conversations, some of them flirtatious, some romantic, some painfully ordinary. Mixed in were messages from my wife. "He's only my husband on paper. We're basically roommates. I'm waiting for the right time to leave. I just don't want him to fall apart financially." I felt numb. None of it was true. Not one word. She'd told me she loved me. She'd told him we were already over. Two completely different realities. Then I saw another message. "Don't call me after 7. He'll get suspicious." Another. "Pretend you're one of the managers if anyone asks." Another. "Use Signal instead of texting." Months of planning, months of deception, not one drunken mistake, not one lapse in judgment, an entire second life. I handed the phone back. "I've seen enough." He nodded. I figured. Before leaving, he said one more thing. "She told me she wanted to tell you after the holidays." I looked at him. "What holidays?" He frowned. "Christmas." It was only July. She'd planned to continue lying for another 5 months. I drove back to Ryan's apartment in complete silence. Halfway there, my sister called. "Mom says something happened." I sighed. "Yeah. Do you want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Too bad." She'd always been direct. "I'll bring dinner." "You don't have to. I'm already on the way." That evening, my sister sat across from me eating Chinese takeout while I picked at rice I wasn't hungry for. After listening to everything, she asked one question. "Can you ever trust her again?" I answered immediately. "No." The speed of my answer surprised even me. She nodded. "Then you already know." I think that was the moment the decision really settled in. Not because I stopped loving my wife, because I realized love wasn't enough anymore. Without trust, every late meeting would become another argument. Every text notification would become another suspicion. Every business trip would become another sleepless night. That isn't a marriage. It's a prison for both people. The next morning, I returned home to collect more clothes. I hoped she'd be at work. She wasn't. She was sitting at the kitchen table, almost as if she'd been waiting. "You talked to David?" It wasn't a question. "Yes." "What did he say?" "The truth." She laughed bitterly. "His version. I saw the messages." Her face froze. "He showed you?" "Yes." She looked genuinely furious. Not at herself. At him. "I can't believe he did that." I couldn't stop staring at her. Even now. Even after everything. She was angry at the other man for telling the truth. Not at herself for creating the situation. She finally looked at me. "I can explain those." I sighed. "I'm sure you can. They're out of context." I actually smiled. Months ago, that explanation might have worked. Now it sounded almost rehearsed. "Emily." She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Her expression crumpled. "Please. I don't know who you are anymore." Those words landed harder than I expected. She started crying again. Real or not, I couldn't tell anymore. "I made mistakes. You built an entire second relationship. I was confused. For 8 months?" She had no answer. The silence between us felt enormous. Finally, I walked upstairs to finish packing. As I zipped my suitcase, I noticed our wedding album sitting on the top shelf of the closet. I picked it up. There we were, smiling, laughing, looking at each other like we were the only two people in the world. I wondered which version of my wife was in those photographs, the woman I married, or the stranger standing downstairs. For the first time since this nightmare began, I accepted something I had been fighting against. The marriage I was grieving hadn't ended at the hotel. It had ended long before I discovered the affair. I just hadn't been told. First, I want to thank everyone who took the time to read my previous posts and leave advice. I didn't respond to many comments because, honestly, I was overwhelmed. There were days I barely looked at my phone. A lot has happened in the last 6 weeks. Some of it was expected, some of it blindsided me all over again. After I packed the rest of my things, I moved into a short-term rental. Ryan kept offering his guest room, but I knew I needed a place where I could think without feeling like I was imposing on anyone. The house was quiet. Too quiet. For the first few nights, I kept reaching for my phone out of habit whenever something funny happened, ready to text my wife. Then I'd remember. There wasn't a us anymore. Just two people headed in different directions. 3 days after I moved out, she called. Not to apologize, not to ask how I was doing, to ask if I could still pay my half of the mortgage because it would be easier for both of us. I actually had to pull the phone away from my ear to make sure I'd heard correctly. I said, "You've spent months lying to me, and that's your first concern?" She sighed dramatically. "I'm trying to be practical." "So am I. I'm under a lot of stress." I closed my eyes. "So am I." There was a long silence before she said quietly, "You've changed." That sentence stuck with me for hours. Not because it was true, because she expected me not to. As if discovering your spouse has been living a double life is something you're supposed to bounce back from in a weekend. A week later, I met with a divorce attorney. Walking into that office felt surreal. I remembered standing in a courthouse 7 years earlier, excited to sign our marriage license. Now I was signing paperwork to end it. Life has a cruel sense of symmetry sometimes. The attorney asked straightforward questions. How long were we married? Any children? Shared debts? Shared property? Every answer made the situation feel more real. At the end of the meeting, he looked at me and said, "This is going to be emotionally difficult, but legally it's fairly straightforward." Emotionally difficult. That turned out to be an understatement. When my wife was served with the papers, she called me 15 times in one afternoon. I answered the 16th. "You filed?" "Yes." "I thought we were taking space." "I did. I thought we'd go to counseling." "You mentioned counseling after I caught you. You didn't even try." I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. I spent months trying to understand why you were pulling away. That's different. No, it isn't. She started crying. I don't want a divorce. I asked one question. If I hadn't found you at the hotel, would you have told me? Silence. 5 seconds. 10. Finally, she whispered, eventually. That was enough. I wished her well. Then I hung up. Over the next few weeks, more pieces of the story came out. Not because she confessed, because the truth has a funny way of surfacing once enough people know there's something to uncover. One of her co-workers reached out through a mutual friend. Apparently, people at her office had suspected something for months. Not because they were openly affectionate, because they disappeared together constantly. Long lunches, shared client meetings, business trips that somehow always involved the same schedules. People talked. No one wanted to get involved. I don't blame them. Workplace rumors can destroy innocent people just as easily as guilty ones. Still, hearing that others had noticed while I remained completely unaware hurt in a different way. It made me question my own judgment. How had I missed so much? My therapist later gave me an answer that helped. You weren't blind, she said. You were trusting. There's a difference. Yes, I started therapy. Several people suggested it. At first, I resisted. I told myself I didn't need it. I wasn't falling apart. Then I realized I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating properly. Every time my phone buzzed unexpectedly, my heart raced. I'd replay conversations from months earlier, wondering which parts had been real and which had been lies. Therapy didn't erase those feelings. It just gave me somewhere to put them. About a month after I filed, my wife asked to meet one last time. Public place, coffee shop. I almost said no. Instead, I figured it might help bring some closure. She looked different, tired. The confidence she'd carried for months was gone. For a few minutes, we talked about practical things. The house, the furniture, our bank accounts. Then she looked at me and asked quietly, "Do you hate me?" I thought about that for a long time before answering. No. She looked relieved. I don't hate you. Another pause. But I don't trust you anymore. She nodded slowly. I know. I think that's worse. Tears filled her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. I believed that. In a strange way, I think it was true. I don't think she'd set out with some grand plan to destroy our marriage. I think she'd made one selfish decision, then another, until eventually the lies became so large that telling the truth would have meant watching everything collapse. So she kept lying, not because it was easier for me, because it was easier for her. Before we left, she asked one final question. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I answered honestly. Maybe. She looked hopeful. But forgiveness doesn't mean rebuilding the relationship. Her expression changed. I can forgive someone and still know they're no longer safe for me to build a life with. She nodded. Neither of us had anything left to say. That was the last time I saw her. Our divorce was finalized several months later. Signing the final papers felt strange, not victorious, not devastating, just final. Like closing the last page of a very long, painful chapter. I sold my share of the house. Moved into a smaller apartment. Started running again. Reconnected with friends I'd unintentionally drifted away from. Little by little, life became recognizable again. Different, but recognizable. So what did I learn? More than I ever wanted to. I learned that trust isn't lost all at once. It's usually chipped away one small lie at a time. I learned that love can survive arguments, financial problems, stress, and grief, but it can't survive repeated dishonesty forever. I learned that apologizing means very little if it only happens after someone gets caught. Most importantly, I learned that respecting yourself sometimes means walking away from someone you still love. If you're reading this because something in your own relationship feels off, my advice is simple. Don't ignore your instincts, but don't let suspicion replace communication either. Ask questions. Listen carefully to the answers. Pay attention to actions more than promises. And if you discover you've been betrayed, remember this. You are not defined by someone else's decision to break your trust. Their choices belong to them. Your future still belongs to you. As for me, I'm taking things one day at a time. For the first time in a long while, I don't know exactly what comes next. Oddly enough, that no longer scares me. It feels like freedom.